I never imagined I'd be the one to bring down Karen Matthews, the infamous HOA president of Whispering Pines. For 3 relentless years, she ruled our quiet neighborhood like a self-appointed dictator, armed with a clipboard and a smile that could curdle milk. She measured lawns to the quarter inch, matched mailbox colors to approved eggshell number 7, and sent violation notices for the crime of existing, slightly outside her definition of perfect. But even I couldn't have predicted just how far she'd go, or how spectacularly she would fall. It all began the week my sister and her family moved in with me temporarily while their house was under renovation. My nephew Ethan, 11 years old and sharp as a tack, was born with cerebral palsy and used a wheelchair. He was one of those kids who never let his challenges define him, always smiling, always figuring things out. To make things easier, my brother-in-law and I installed a small, removable aluminum ramp over the 2 steps leading to my front door. It wasn't fancy or permanent, just a simple way for Ethan to come and go freely. The next morning, the doorbell rang at exactly 7:30 a.m. When I opened the door, there she was, Karen Matthews in all her glory. Her platinum blonde bob was perfectly in place, designer sunglasses perched on her head, clipboard pressed against her chest like a badge of authority. "Good morning," she said, wearing that tight-lipped smile she used whenever she was about to ruin someone's day. "I noticed you've made an unauthorized modification to your property." I blinked, still half asleep.
"Excuse me?"
She pointed, manicured finger extended like she was calling out a crime scene. "The ramp. It's not on the approved structures list for front entrances." Article 7, Section 12 of the HOA bylaws clearly states that all exterior modifications must be reviewed and approved by the Architectural Committee. "You'll need to remove it immediately." I took a slow breath, trying to keep calm. "Karen, it's a temporary ramp for my nephew. He uses a wheelchair. He's staying with us for a few weeks." She adjusted her clipboard, scanning it like it held the answer to life itself. "I don't see any approved accommodation requests in your file. You'll need to submit Form 34B along with architectural drawings, material samples, and a physician's statement. The committee meets on the first Tuesday of next month." I stared at her, stunned. "You're joking, right? My nephew needs access now, not a month from now. This is a reasonable accommodation under the Americans with Disabilities Act." Karen's eyes narrowed behind her sunglasses. "The HOA predates ADA requirements," she said coldly, "and our bylaws take precedence. You have 48 hours to remove the unauthorized structure, or you'll be fined $50 per day." And just like that, she spun around and strutted down my walkway, clipboard in hand, leaving me speechless in the doorway. That afternoon, I sat down and did my homework. And guess what? Karen was completely categorically wrong. The ADA applies to HOAs, no matter when they were founded. I printed out the relevant sections, highlighted them, and left the documents in her mailbox with a polite note explaining that the ramp would remain until my nephew moved out. I even added that I was happy to discuss it if she had questions. The next evening, I came home from work to find a bright yellow violation notice taped to my door, with a $200 fine. The offense? Nuisance correspondence in a non-approved mailbox receptacle. Apparently, dropping documents in Karen's mailbox was also a violation of HOA policy. I laughed at the absurdity, but only for a moment, because 2 days later, on a calm Saturday morning, Ethan wheeled himself into the kitchen, tears streaming down his face.
"Uncle James," he said softly, "someone took my ramp.
I can't get outside to play with the other kids." I froze. "What?" I rushed to the front door, and sure enough, the ramp was gone. Not moved, not misplaced, gone. Through the window, I could see neighborhood kids playing street hockey, laughing in the morning sun, the very game Ethan had been so excited to watch all week. My blood boiled. I didn't need to guess who was behind it. I carried Ethan down the steps and set him up where he could at least see his friends play. Then I stormed down the cul-de-sac toward Karen's immaculate white colonial, her fortress of control, complete with symmetrical hedges and perfect garden flags fluttering like victory banners. I rang her doorbell 3 times. She finally appeared, dressed in a pristine tennis outfit, though I'd never once seen her touch a racket. "Where's the ramp?" I demanded, skipping any small talk. Karen crossed her arms, face calm and smug. "I had it removed. Section 23 of the bylaws grants the HOA remediation rights for unauthorized structures. You were given notice." "That ramp is my property," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "You stole it." "Where is it?" She sighed like she was the one being inconvenienced. "The non-compliant item has been disposed of. If you continue this hostile behavior, I'll have to report you for creating a disruptive environment." "That carries a $500 fine." I stared at her in disbelief. "Karen, that ramp cost $800. More importantly, my disabled nephew can't leave the house without being carried. This isn't just cruel. It's illegal." She smiled, that smug little twist of the lips. "I'm simply enforcing the bylaws you agreed to when you moved in. Perhaps next time you'll follow proper channels before altering the exterior aesthetic of our community." That was the moment I decided to change tactics. "You know what, Karen? You're right. I should have followed proper channels. And now I will." I took out my phone and raised it. "Smile for the evidence photo." Her confident expression faltered. "What do you think you're doing?" "Documenting the person who committed theft," I said evenly, "and violated federal disability law. The police will appreciate having a clear picture." I snapped the photo and turned to walk away, leaving her sputtering in disbelief on her perfect little porch. "You can't prove anything. The police don't care about HOA matters." Karen's voice echoed down the street as I walked away, but I wasn't heading to the local police. Not yet. Instead, I went straight home and called an attorney who specialized in ADA compliance law. The moment I explained the situation, he practically lit up. "This is open and shut," he said confidently. "Destruction of medical equipment, theft of property worth over $500, and a willful ADA violation. She's looking at serious consequences." That was all I needed to hear. The following Monday, I took the day off work. At exactly 9 a.m., two things happened simultaneously. First, Karen received a certified letter from my attorney, detailing every federal law she'd violated. Second, I filed a formal police report for theft and destruction of medical equipment. By noon, word had spread, and 3 other families in Whispering Pines came forward with their own horror stories of Karen's discrimination against residents with disabilities or medical needs. Apparently, I wasn't the only one she'd targeted. Karen's response? She called an emergency HOA meeting for that very evening. Usually those meetings were ghost towns, just Karen and her 2 loyal sidekicks rubber-stamping whatever nonsense she proposed. But that night, nearly every homeowner showed up, crowding the community center to the walls. Karen stood at the podium, red-faced and clutching her beloved stack of bylaws like a shield. "We have a resident," she began sharply, glaring right at me, "who is trying to circumvent our established procedures. If we allow one unauthorized ramp, next thing you know, people will be painting their houses purple and parking commercial vehicles in their driveways." The room murmured, half in disbelief, half in irritation. When she finally paused, I raised my hand. She hesitated, clearly dreading it, before nodding stiffly. "I'd like to address the board," I said, standing. "Specifically regarding the theft and destruction of medical equipment from my property. A federal crime." Karen's face turned from red to deep purple. "That's a lie," she snapped. "The HOA has remediation rights." I held up my phone calmly. "I have security camera footage showing you and the association's maintenance worker removing the ramp at 6:15 a.m. on Saturday." That wasn't entirely true. But the look on the maintenance guy's face said everything I needed to know. "I also have the purchase receipt," I continued, "ADA documentation proving its necessity, and written statements from 3 medical professionals explaining how removing it endangered my nephew's mobility." The room went utterly silent. Karen looked around for backup, but even her usual allies couldn't meet her eyes. One studied his shoes. The other fidgeted with a pen like it might save him. I wasn't done. "Additionally," I said, "I've spoken with the district attorney's office about pressing charges for theft over $500, destruction of medical equipment, conspiracy to violate civil rights under color of authority, and violations of the Fair Housing Act." The crowd gasped. Then a woman from the back stood up. "My son has autism," she said. "Karen fined me for putting up a sensory swing in our backyard, called it an unsightly play structure." An elderly man raised his hand. "She made me remove the handrail I installed after my hip surgery. Said it didn't match the community's design standards, and just like that, the floodgates opened. One by one, neighbors stood and shared their experiences. Stories of fines, threats, humiliation, all at Karen's hands. Every tale is more outrageous than the last. Karen banged her gavel repeatedly, shouting for order, but no one cared. Finally, the maintenance worker stood, pale as chalk, and stepped up to the microphone. "For the record," he said nervously, "Ms. Matthews instructed me to remove the ramp and take it straight to the landfill, so it couldn't be recovered." He turned to me, regret on his face. "I had no idea it was for a disabled child. She told me it was abandoned junk." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out. 2 days later, I was in my front yard installing a new, sturdier ramp when a police cruiser rolled slowly down the street. It stopped right in front of Karen's house. 2 officers stepped out and knocked on her door. I couldn't hear their conversation, but a few minutes later, they escorted her out to the car, not handcuffed, but clearly under direction. Neighbors peeked out from porches and windows, whispering. Some even clapped quietly as the Queen of Whispering Pines was finally dethroned. That afternoon, I got a call from the district attorney's office. Karen had officially been charged with theft, destruction of medical equipment, and multiple ADA violations. Because she'd used her position as HOA president to commit those acts, the charges were enhanced. She was facing up to 3 years in prison and fines exceeding $100,000. The DA explained there was a plea deal on the table: 6 months of house arrest, 5 years probation, full restitution for the ramp and additional damages, 200 hours of community service working with disabled individuals, and a lifetime ban from serving on any HOA board. That evening, as the sun set over Whispering Pines, I helped Ethan roll up our brand new ramp. Sturdy, silver, and shining in the light, across the street, Karen pulled into her driveway. Her once perfect hair was frizzy, her designer outfit replaced with a rumpled pantsuit. She looked defeated. When she saw us, her face twisted with humiliation and anger. She slammed her car door and disappeared inside, only to reappear moments later holding a for sale sign. With a scowl, she stabbed it into her flawless lawn so hard I thought she might snap the stake in half. For a long moment, our eyes met across the street. And for the first time, I didn't see arrogance or superiority in hers. I saw something else. Fear. Karen Matthews, the self-proclaimed ruler of Whispering Pines, who had terrorized neighbors with fines, threats, and rigid rules, had finally learned that the law didn't bow to her clipboard, and for the first time, she was the one trembling in its shadow.